There's an interesting theory of love by Sternberg from 1980s, which tries to describe the different kinds of versions of love. I want to highlight that there are still some universal characteristics when it comes to love. And since also love varies based on culture, you can look from the framework of this theory, how does love manifest in different forms? According to Sternberg, relationships can be categorized based on different combinations of the three forms of love. There is passion, commitment, and intimacy. What do these mean? So in this triangle, you can see that they are all linked with each other. What does intimacy mean? Intimacy tries to describe the closeness that you have with your partner. This can be from a physical, spiritual, mental level. It's kind of like you have created a bond together. You feel intimate with that, open with that person. You can tell them your secrets. You can have an intimate relationship with your best friend or your sister, your brother, depending, of course, how close you are with them. In short-term relationships, intimacy doesn't have enough time to build up. But in the long-term relationships, according to Sternberg, especially intimacy is an important component. What is passion? Passion, on the other hand, tries to describe only more of the classical romantic attraction, the physical, sexual drive and urge that you have with that person. This kind of passion can make a person motivated. It can really truly motivate someone to stay in a relationship. It is a state of physical arousal. It can be their smell, their looks, how strong they are. It can be all these kind of different characteristics that make you really passionate of the other person. And this is also kind of the unconscious thing. The love at first sight, it's probably a passion component involved. Titanic, that's amazing example of purely a passionate short-term relationship. It's not something that you control. It's something that at least we feel like comes from an unconscious level, that it just happened. Last one is the commitment part. This is something that is important to remember because many long-term marriages and relationships have commitment as a strong characteristic of their relationship. Commitment is like a decision. It's a decision that both parties have made to agree to stay together in the relationship. Compared to the passionate love, this is a form of love that is more controlled, more mutually decided and discussed. Okay, so what does this mean? You can look at relationships from the framework. Do you have a passion? Do you have passion and commitment? If you have passion and commitment, we can be talking about fast marriages, butterflies on the stomach, love at first sight, being together for a few weeks, being together for a few months, and just getting engaged, getting married, and making a long-term commitment decision when the intimacy part have not yet had time to evolve. And due to the lack of this intimacy components, these kind of relationships can fail easily due to that. What if you have intimacy and commitment with your partner? Well, if you have intimacy and commitment, it means that it's almost like a long-term committed friendship. There might not be a lot of like sexual attraction, the physical sensations might not be that strong, but you trust truly in each other and you are committed to make the relationship work. Passion is hard to maintain. Therefore, this kind of love happens quite often in marriages and relationships. It doesn't mean that you cannot lit the flames again. It doesn't mean that. You can definitely do that. But when we're talking about decades of marriage, it's normal to have phases where the relationship is more dependent on the intimacy and the commitment components. Of course, these relationships can also fail because when the spark is found somewhere else, or it feels like there's no spark between you, that can become an issue. Intimacy and passion. Well, this form of love you can see in books like Romeo and Juliet. Is like when you have had enough time to be with that person to create a sense of high trust and bond, and yet you also have strong passion for each other, but you cannot commit to each other for a reason or another. There can be reasons like your parents parents don't agree, the financials are bad, you're unemployed. There might be different reasons why you decide not to commit for each other, but there is still a strong intimacy and strong passion. It is also possible that you are just having an intimate relationship. This means that you can feel really bonded and close and trust with that person, but maybe you are not committed for each other in long term. Maybe there is not as much physical attraction towards each other, but yet you have intimacy. And like I also mentioned previously, passion alone, I think Titanic is a good example of that. There's different love stories that describe passion alone. And then of course we can see also commitment relationships. We can see arranged marriages, for example, or due to religion, whatever it might be the reason, there can be situations where you just decide to be married or together when there has not been enough time to develop a sense of intimacy with that person. Then it can be a more rationally or consciously decided relationship. So what is the optimal? Well, the optimal, of course, is to be in the center of this triangle. So according to Sternberg, it's a balance of passion, intimacy, and commitment. And Sternberg even describes it that this is like the closest to unconditional love that, for example, parents have for their children. And according to research after Sternberg's triangular theory of love, we can see that even in different societies, women experience all these forms of love. But specifically, commitment is what is important from the survival perspective. There was a study in Tanzania of a hunter-gatherer group, and the study revealed that the women specifically were reliant on the commitment part of the relationship, suggesting that commitment as a form of love is important when it comes to reproductive purpose. And of course, we could expect that passion declines the longer you are with your partner. Actually, according to a cross-cultural research by Swarovski, we can see that the decline in passion is true, but it's not as strong as you could imagine. So passion also stays usually as an important factor in long-term marriages and relationships. So what does this mean from the perspective of personality types? I don't have research about what kinds of forms of love do different personality types have in their relationships, but I can guarantee that there are probably really similar patterns based on like same personality type. So if you are an ESTP, I think it's highly likely that you have intimate and passionate relationships compared to that you have a lot of like commitment relationships. As an ESTP, you probably kind of just end up in relationships and it's so entertaining or fun and stimulating that you want to stay in that relationship, but it's not a decision before made. Compared to, let's say, like an ENFJ, you might decide before even having intimacy with that person, you might have made already a decision that you are gonna commit in this relationship. To introverted sensing users, long-term marriage, I bet that it's a strong commitment relationship and maybe could lack a bit of the passion part. But to extroverted sensing users, that can mean that it's a really passionate, stimulating relationship, but it might be a bit fluctuating when it comes to commitment. It's a simple, understandable theory of the forms of love. See you in the next video.